Hello and welcome to Big Deal. I'm Nisha Poddar. Now, it's been a blockbuster year for deal makers as it turned out to be a year of block deals, with M&A activity being quite muted this year. Now, block deals worth close to about $15 billion changed hands in the year, largest ever seen in the Indian markets. Private equity, venture capital made exits worth over $10 billion. And this ruled the Deal Street theme for 2023. Let's discuss the key highlights of 2023, the learnings, and crystal gaze into the year 2024 with deal makers Zia Mody and Salil Pitale. Thank you so much for joining us right here on CNBC-TV18. Zia Mody, how do you see the year 2023? What stood out for you the most?
So, the good and the bad. The disappointment for any intermediary like ourselves was the much more muted approach by private equity. There was a distinct pause, re-engaging on valuation. The mismatch story had still sorted itself out. So where you would typically see somebody doing 10 deals, you would see them doing 5. Each deal would take longer instead of 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. So that was a bit of a slowdown from our perspective. We did see some good deals, which stood out as marquee deals. However, we also saw the domestic market and the domestic M&A picking up more than before. Renewables remained a bright spot from what we could see. A lot of auctions, a lot of bidding, people really wanting to be able to say that we are developing and going green, etc. You see the IPO market not slowing down. Tata Technologies was, of course, fantastic, where investors felt that, as always, the house left something on the table for them. But as you can see, whenever you open the newspapers every day, there's one IPO after another. So maybe for this year, it was not as slow as I would have thought at the beginning of the year. Yes. We now have to see after January it slows down because of the elections, but certainly it has been a pleasant surprise, as Salil I'm sure will validate.
That's right, Zia. In fact, that stood out quite emphatically for this particular year, because the previous year, 2022, was quite slow when it came to the IPO. So IPOs made a comeback. And Salil, throw more light on this. On the IPO side, a lot of it was also growth capital, but they were mid-sized. What stands out in the IPO theme that really played out for this year?
So you're right, Nisha. The IPO theme was a lot more mid-sized rather than the blockbuster big-sized ones. If you recollect, we had a lot of them in calendar 21 or end of FY22. There was a bit of a pause or a slightly more muted approach last financial year. The IPO market kind of again restarted with the likes of Mankind Pharma early part of the year in April, 4,300 crore transaction and so on. But subsequently, we've seen that there's been a fair amount of mid-market activity on public markets on the IPO side. There haven't been the mega transactions, but there have been the mid-size, the 1,000, 2,000 crore kind of transactions, or some of them even smaller. The interesting part has been the kind of investor interest that we've seen in these deals. Mind you, this is 1 year wherein we've seen that the balance of power in terms of domestic participation in these transactions in IPOs has been just fantastic, maybe exemplified by the fact that a lot of the mutual funds have fantastic ongoing monthly SIP flows coming in, so they need to deploy. Towards the end of the year, calendar year, we also saw FI participation coming back with a bang. One data point that really stands out for me essentially is that this year, if you take a net flows of a calendar year, this net flows between FIs and domestics, it's close to $40 billion. That's, almost 3.4 trillion rupees. And as against that, the kind of IPO paper or even the QIP's paper is far lesser compared to the amount of money which has been available. So that's resulted in, a lot of such deals getting, strong oversubscription. There's a lot of chasing for quality transactions because people want to deploy capital after good companies.
Yes.
So that's come out well. And last part is, I think,
Uh,
the kind of companies that have hit the market by and large on the main board have been really good quality names.
Yes, good quality. And from the house of Tatas, Zia Mody, after almost 2 decades, an IPO offering, and what a blockbuster IPO that one was. But that's not the only one. You've been working closely with so many conglomerates, including Tata's, JSW Infra listed after almost 14 years of last listing. Reliance Industries also listed, not an IPO, but listed its financial services arm. So that became a theme for this particular year, Zia.
Absolutely. And what I wanted to ask Salil, I don't have the statistics, but earlier in earlier years, we used to say that the opening price was 100, but it traded down the first day to less than that. I've seen less of that right now. Is that correct? Would you say that the trading down also has been less?
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean,
yes.
see, I mean, just to give you the statistic out of the IPOs till December, and there are a few of them which are listing now, but even excluding them, out of about 43 IPOs which hit the markets in this financial year, I'm talking April till now, 90% of them have traded up, which is a very, very strong statistic,
That's right.
90%. And even in the current crop of IPOs which are hitting the markets right now, we've done one opening today, Inox, which is up, 45%. There's been, there are two or three more out there likely to come out. We're seeing a lot more positive traction there. I think it's a 90 plus, closer to 95% number in this year.
So that's the point, right, Nisha? That
Yes.
it's not trading down, it's trading up. And that again is reinforcing what Salil is saying, that the SIPs need to be deployed and the mutual funds are active, and therefore the retail participation is high, and therefore the stock is not trading down.
That's right. But Zia, the equity market overall also has been on a run-up mode. And a lot of factors have really contributed to that. And a lot of fillip was also given by US Fed's comments, which were taken very positively, and also the state elections. So that looked like a preview for the union elections. Salil, Pitale, while we're talking about IPOs, there are many other things to speak about, but one important question on everybody's mind: how do you see the markets sustaining at these levels, and also IPO stream ahead of the elections next year? Because that's going to be a very, very important variable to watch out for.
Sure, Nisha. I think quite a few parameters at play which will decide this. I think the first parameter was, political stability, uncertainty, and the likes around it. Markets believe with the kind of state election results have come in that there could be continuity around that. So that's stability gives a lot of comfort to markets. In terms of sectors, in terms of global economy, I think India clearly stands out compared to the rest of the world. So a lot of I mean, we're the growth economy and we're doing really well. There's a lot of manufacturing related area activities which are getting centered into the Indian context. Manufacturing not just for domestic, but manufacturing for the world. So what we do see as themes coming out over the next 1 year, next calendar year, is fundraisers of companies which are generally in the industrial domain, which is manufacturing, across different categories of it, defense and so on. We do see a lot of action going ahead on technology, by the way. A new age technology was, a sector which was euphoric and then got battered down. But I would think next year we'll see some of the good quality names of businesses which have scaled up, started becoming profitable. Those are the categories of companies that could hit the markets. I think consumer as a theme is very much always there in India, and I think you'll see opportunities coming out of those segments. Even traditional IT services, there are niche elements coming out of IT services companies. So some of those will be, market players. So all in all, I would think, there should be some good amount of excitement in the kind of quality of names that will hit the markets. You could expect to see some of the bigger names coming in. The biggest IPO this year was probably less than 5,000 crores in terms of size. But and there was a time when we've seen 10,000 crore plus deals.
Yes.
We haven't seen that last year. We would potentially see at least the 5,000 crore plus transactions hitting the markets. You could also see a little bit more on the QIP fundraise as we go along. We saw a glimmer of that in the later part as some of the banks and the financials raised some money out of the markets. And given that there is a need for deployment of capital into paper, so there's a There
That's
could be an
right.
opportunity for quality paper to get access to this capital ahead.
All right, so it's a lot of action and the pipeline is strong for the next year. But Zia Mody, the private equity players are the happiest lot for this particular year. Over $10 billion of exits made, and the market equity window gave enough returns to them and even complete exit opportunities. What do you make of this particular big theme for this year?
So I think it's a combination of several things, Nisha. One is that, all these private equity players have raised new funds, which they have to deploy. And these are exits from their older funds, which need to be returned to the LPs. There is nothing as happy as a LP who gets a return, because he can then say that he has received the return and he redeploys it in the new fund. The new fund is dry powder, so that is waiting to be invested. But exits are a sure sign that the PE here knows what they're doing. Even with the rupee depreciating, the returns, as I understand it, have been pretty decent in dollar returns. And I think some funds are just reached their life, need to be wound down. I think others, private equity, have taken the call. This is the right time, with the market being at a high, to get rid of a chunk of their shares and to basically go back and sell the India story. A lot of funds are now not trying to only raise global funds, but South Asia funds. And in the South Asia funds, India is getting a much larger part of the allocation than before.
Yes.
I think a couple of factors that are happening.
Yes, that's a very important takeaway, that the deployment to India has risen for most of these investors as well, looking at the growth potential. Salil, Pitale, what do you think about the blocks that have taken place in terms of the pipeline going forward? Are we left with some more for this particular year? And how is the opening of the next year looking like in terms of pipeline?
No, I think the blocks activity is continuing as we come towards the last week of the month. People do go on holidays, so therefore you could expect a little bit muted around this. But mind you, a lot of companies where blocks do take place have silent periods which start out of the post 1st Jan. So I would still not rule out, in spite of holiday season, that you could still see some more action for the last week of the year also.
That's like a path-breaking development, and the theme that really played out. It has been very surprising, and even in the REIT space, there were many takers for Blackstone to really exit its investment in Embassy REIT. All right, with that, we'll slip into a short breather. Zia, Salil, hold on to your thoughts. Lots more to discuss about what lies ahead on the deal street for the year 2024. Stay tuned.